It's the Luke and Pete Show with me, Pete Donaldson, and Mr. Lukey Moore. Everything's good in the hood. I don't know why I launched into that. There's a lot of on YouTube, on my algorithms, I don't know why, but there's just a lot of people complaining about YouTube algorithms. There's a lot of people talking about Donald Trump. But there's also a lot of sort of good news stories from the slightly sort of militaristic sort of YouTube accounts talking about, Russia is about to fall, the economy's in the toilet, they finally turned a corner there, Ukraine is on the march. And I've been watching a lot of these sort of videos and stuff, and it very much seems like that's not happening because they've been saying these things for the last 2 years. And I just think that I am in a position where the algorithm is serving me things I want to hear and not actually serving me the truth lately. And I feel like I'm being looked after.
Algorithms will be the death of all of us.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And I think it's also such a pointless extinction. We are basically going to suffer the most pointless extinction in ever, because if you look at all the other extinctions, I can't remember how many there've been, but they've been like, I don't know, say 4 or 5 or something. I can't actually remember. Archaeologists and historians and fucking paleontologists, whoever the fuck they are, have said that there are a certain amount of these extinction level events, mass extinction events, and we're currently living through a human-made one through so many different species being died out. But all those, apart from that one, have been through natural causes, right? I don't know, a big fucking asteroid or a change in the climate or the ice age or whatever the fuck. This one is going to happen because we are going to self-immolate because we've handed over all of our decision-making to a fucking idiot computer program and that no one fully understands, right? So the AI thing about is AI going to take over the world? And I've said this before. A lot of people don't find it realistic that AI will kill us because they think, I can't imagine waking up one morning and it being like the Will Smith movie, I, Robot, therefore it's going to be fine. And it's like, that's not how this works, right? How this works is artificial intelligence already dictating what you think and do by the device you've got in your hand or your laptop or whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised, Pete, if it is serving you up shit you want to hear because it's so sophisticated. I mean, last time I was with you in person, you showed me your Instagram algorithm and it was about 25 videos of women with massive tits.
Yeah.
So we know what side of the fence you're on.
I'm looking over the fence down a lady's top, it seems. As I said, it's like that. I've not asked for that, but I might have clicked on a few. Not my fault, is it? I'm only a man standing in front of a phone full of busters.
Listen, on that end of the scale, a woman has put her tits on the internet. She's chosen to do it, and you've chosen to have a look. Right? No harm done.
Okay. Right.
On the other end of the scale, making people hate immigrants or poor people or people with different colour skin is not going to end well, right? And we're already in the thick of that. Right? People have no idea what they're looking at or listening to and whether it's real or not. No one knows whether something that's being told to them is true or false. And that means eventually things are going to get very, very dark indeed.
Maybe we need to recognise and remind that some immigrants have boobies. Maybe I need to go on an information blast on the internet and go, guys, some of these immigrants are very sexy, and so that's how that. Are
you the
needs
best
to go.
person to be doing that, looking as you do? With your lung problem?
With me lung problem, man, heavily breathing, reminding everyone about sexuality. Now, it's a weird one. Apparently, the AI bubble is set to burst because nobody's. I think this kind of new iteration of the image generator Sora 2 came out this week, and it's mainly been relatively charming videos of Michael Jackson stealing KFC in KFC. Enjoyed the Michael Jackson ones, the wrestling ones. Your Stephen Hawkins of this world. upsetting in various degrees. But in many ways, this new kind of iteration of the image generation, people have been going, yeah, it's still absolute shit. It's still taking so much energy to do like really quite basic stuff, and it can't sort of remember what you asked it last time out. And I think this kind of like the very visceral visual representation of this particular new AI has really sort of made the entire kind of Silicon Valley going, oh, I think the bubble might be about to burst in a really sort of messy way, because everyone's really spent a lot of money, and it's just great to see, you know.
My take on that part of it is that those types of people are so desperate for it to work. They've decided that they don't want to think about how good it actually is.
Yeah, but everyone thinks everything's a gold rush all the time, and they want easy money, quickly.
But the algorithms, Pete, are different, aren't they? The algorithms have been proven to be very sophisticated, very successful at channeling people, funneling them down to more extreme viewpoints. I've seen studies where people have set up 5 or 10 different devices with a complete neutral political profile and decide to go down different kind of routes, and every single time they're basically funneled down outrage, anger, and it eventually always leads to not just like right-wing talking points, but like actually quite serious right-wing talking points, and ultimately, like every conspiracy theory, just ends up with Jewish people.
Always the Jews.
There's also one of the things I would say about the undermining of any kind of confidence in the information one is receiving. There's another great example of that over the last week or two with this guy, Nathan Gill. Have you heard of him?
Maybe, potentially.
Nathan Gill is essentially, he's the former leader of the Reform Party in Wales. Right. And I think he was like kind of quietly sidelined and moved out of the way, and now just does stuff in the background for reform, because he essentially admitted to being on the payroll of Vladimir Putin, like taking bribes.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
And he's also heavily linked with the leader of the Ukrainian opposition, who was essentially like a Russian puppet.
A stooge, yeah.
Right. And loads of funding comes from it, loads of close links with Nigel Farage. I kind of am casting aspersions about it because he sounds objectively fucking terrible. But the point I'm making is that no one seems to care. Yeah. Right? No one cares, right? And like 10 years ago, whenever it was, right? Oleg Voloshin, the Ukrainian guy, who was on like loads of different lists being against like UK and US interests because he's essentially a pawn of the FSB, right? Yeah. Now no one cares. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. The reason no one cares is not because my argument is the reason that no one cares is not because they don't actually care. It's just because no one really knows what to think anymore.
But do you not think that kind of the disappointing thing for me is that, you know, fascists and despots and tin pot dictators have existed since, you know, democracy or, you know, perceived democracy has been around, and do you not the disappointing thing for me is that this is such a pastiche of a pastiche, and quite thick people are kind of operating these political groups, and you do sort of go, even for like a dyed-in-the-wool, right-wing maniac man on the street, I do think they deserve a better class of fascists. Do you know what I mean? I do think they deserve like a proper politician who needs to be deft, who needs to understand, instead of just pointing at boats and going boats, and while pocketing vast amounts of money from Russia.
Very low.
And the amount of money that Russia is paying is so cheap. It's such an affordable way to manipulate elections in other countries. It's astonishing.
We're through the looking glass now. Like, you know, it's very difficult to know which direction it's going to go in. I saw Jeremy Clarkson tearing strips off Farage the other day. Like, I've seen Marjorie Taylor Greene like roll out some quite kind of liberal, anti-authoritarian talking points. Like,
it's like the mad ones. Obviously, MTG is very much
to go with Megan Fox. rapper.
It's very, it's very much the. It's like these kind of like right-wing maniacs are discovering, like, healthcare, the importance of healthcare, and the importance of, like, reopening the government, and the importance, and the Democrats are kind of like, they're a little bit like, oh yeah, come over. It's like going, yeah, they're still mental, though. Like, beware, because they are still conspiracy maniacs.
So with the American side of things, obviously there's a certain element of it where they go to town halls, have strips torn off them, get really frightened, and then think, what am I going to fucking do?
Yeah.
But with Marjorie Taylor Greene, I honestly just think she is so mad that it's almost chosen at random what she thinks. And obviously she got a lot of fame from being adjacent to Trump, so she liked that. Yeah. And now she's moved on to the next thing, right? She's not like one of the best pieces of advice I was given when we started this business, right, was don't negotiate with an irrational actor, right? Sometimes you get into negotiation with people who maybe want to present a show with you or work with you, and they're so self-obsessed or they're so odd that you can't predict first of all, you don't know what they want, and secondly, you can't predict how they're going to act.
And you've already got one of them.
Yeah, wrap your hand in, just move on. It's the same with her. She can't be relied upon for anything. She doesn't know what she thinks. But the discourse has become so weird now. What I don't think people are properly grasping how weird everything is. I was listening to a show the other day. What was it? Oh, it was a show that two of the actors from The Sopranos do. Not Talking Sopranos with Malta Santi and Bobby Bacala. It was with Meadow and AJ. They've got a podcast together, right?
Okay, right.
And they talk about lots of different things. And I saw they had the actor who plays Adriana on there, who's a lady called Drea De Matteo, right? She is unquestionably mad, right? I have no idea what her origin story is. I don't know. I hope she's okay. I don't really know anything about her. But she did about 10 minutes on chemtrails.
Right, okay. Yeah.
On a Sopranos podcast where the two hosts were just like, all right. And she's talking about this stuff like, at one point she says, yeah, so I stood under a load of chemtrails and it started raining and I thought, this rain isn't right. And so I waited for a bit and it got really cold and it started hailstoning and these hailstones were massive. And then I kept one of the hailstones in my freezer and it started growing all this weird stuff on it. And then another hailstone I melted it and I drank it and it tasted weird. And it's like, and these other guys, these presenters just going, all right, yeah, you go, keep doing you go kind of thing. And I was like, what? Like, this is a mainstream show. This is mainstream stuff.
But that's the thing though with the podcast. Like, I think you feel, because it's a podcast about a certain thing or just an old podcast, you feel like it's not necessarily an interview. And I think this kind of like access journalism, or not really access journalism, but like people will come on your show and you feel like you can't challenge them because they're doing you a favour to give you content for your show.
But I think these guys are mates.
Right, okay.
So I think they're just like, oh yeah, she's a bit mad, but she's our mate, so we'll just have her on. But the problem with that is there's been a complete absolution of responsibility, right? So you clearly, I know podcasting has become like the thing. Everyone does it. But I remember there was a thing back in the day. I'm sorry to sound boring and a bit kind of stiff-collared, but I remember there was a time back in the day in broadcasting, Pete, where you had responsibility for your guests. Yeah. And it's like, they've just put that out. They've clipped that out for socials and everything.
We've had certain guests that we've mentioned on this show not that long ago that we've cut stuff out because they've been weird or strange, and we just sort of thought, you know what, that's probably more trouble than it's worth. A couple of national treasures in there. We've kind of cut stuff out just simply because we're just like, well,
we had Martin Daubney on the show once, and he's gone completely mad.
Right, which one's that one?
Martin, he was on Berkhamsted.
Right.
He used to be the editor of a magazine.
Right.
And now he is I think a kind of, it's hard to remember all the different. He's Lawrence Fox adjacent now. He was a Brexit Party member for a while.
Is it the only way you can make money though? Is it the only way you can make money these days?
But he does like GB News and stuff.
Yeah, well that's what I mean, but there's no there's no Guardian News, is there? There's just no money, and there's so much money in outrage, and so much money in talking about this and that, and there's so much money in stabbings and fucking, London being, Londistan and all that fucking racist shit. There's money in the boats. There's money in, you can't say anything these days, but there's no money on the other side, because a lot of the stuff they're talking about doesn't actually fucking exist. Like, look at the way the fucking Trump this week they've declaring Antifa as a terrorist group, so he can just, again, this fascist playbook, he's just kind of like, it's just such low rents. It's the sort of thing I would do if I was a maniac. And
I'd
if
vote
I was,
for you.
if I was
if your
Donald
lungs
Trump,
were up to it, you'd be up for all this, wouldn't you?
I'd be up all this. It would limit my powers as an orator, I would say. Me dodging
But I always think back to the best example with personal experience I can think of how radical and how odd everything has become, is that I was in a green room once at Sky News with Tim Montgomery. Do you know Tim?
Yes.
And he was created Conservative Home. He's a conservative guy, but was essentially as normal as they come for a Tory, from what I could work out. Right, and I sat with him, and I might have told you this story before, but we got bumped off Sky News for Barack Obama doing a speech.
Yes.
And so we were sat in the green room for ages. They were like, "Oh, really sorry, guys, but because you know how far away Sky is." They're like, "Oh, do you mind just staying, and then we might need to use you later." So we were just sitting there having a cup of tea, shooting the shit. I found like a really interesting bloke. Like, he was a bit of a Thatcherite as a kid. He's older than me, but he's a bit of a Thatcherite as a younger person. He's a Christian as well, and we just were very different. But like, he was a very respectful, polite man. I really enjoyed his company, right? And I remember seeing him about a year ago and thinking, what the actual fuck has happened to you? Like, where has this come from? He's like a reform guy now. He loves what that fella's doing in Hungary. He's a big fucking Richard Tice man. Like everyone seems to have been funneled in this way, and it's really frightening. It's really frightening.
Do you not think it's the internet? These kind of slightly, it's usually men that were possibly, like, personally never like the popular kid at school, so to speak, and you get online, it's a bit of an echo chamber. You see these sort of characters who are quite successful online getting a bit of support for, quite sort of, what you would regard as quite fringy rivers of blood stuff in the 1970s and 80s, and now they're getting, you get that kind of fortification by expressing more and more extreme views, and you get more and more success by just, not really sort of couching your views in kind of, half speak, just really sort of going out there and just talking absolute shit. And you start to believe it, and you spend enough time in the fucking sewer that you sort of think, oh, well, people seem to like this stuff, so I'll keep doing it, and I'll become more and more extreme.
It, so I must be right, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I must be right. This seems to be a real kind
another good example is this idea that someone like Douglas Carswell, who's a fucking odd guy, but was ostensibly for a while at least a mainstream politician, right? Elected MP for a while. He's now on the record as saying he wants to pursue policies like remigration. Remigration was like essentially, for those people listening who are a bit younger, like remigration was essentially the territory of straight racists, like proper
National Front
out
stuff.
there National Front combating racists 25, 30 years ago, right? Yeah. Now, it's clearly absolutely appalling, but it is Overton window stuff now, right? It's frightening, honestly. And let me just jump back on something you said earlier, because I think it's a really interesting point as well, which is that, this algorithm stuff and this funneling of people down to extreme views and this negativity, essentially. What's not talked about often enough, I think, is that we as a fucking species have always been obsessed with bad news. Always. You never, ever get good news running on any mainstream news program, even before the internet, right? The news was the news, and it was always essentially bad, right? Yeah. And there'll be an "and finally" at the end, which would be, oh, and by the way, did you see that this fucking budgie can say 50 words or whatever? Or, oh, by the way, interest rates have come down. Oh, but there's been this and this happened. So it's in us, right? And the thing to remember is, yes, the algorithms are fucking sophisticated, and yes, they're clever, but they're only tapping into like the darker recesses of human nature, which has always been there anyway. So maybe we don't fucking deserve to survive as a fucking species.
No, we're right fucking miserable sods, aren't we? We're like, with every in between, you know, everybody's ears is just, you know, Stephen Patrick Morrissey screaming to get out. We just want it all. We just want all the misery.
He's a fucking another one.
Well, you know.
Peter, let's have a break. Let's have a break and come back. I want to do a couple of emails because we've been very very heavy there, and I want to do a couple of emails that have come in that have genuinely interested me.
We're back with Luke Pete Show. Let's do some bloody emails for crying out loud. Hello at LukePeteShow.com is the way to get in touch, so please do that.
I'm really fascinated to tell you this email. I hope you haven't read it ahead of time.
No,
it's
not.
Brilliant.
That would be too much prep for me.
Okay, fine. So Nathan's been in touch. I love this email. He says, "Hi Luke and Pete. You spoke recently about plane hijackings, right?" I know I said it's all getting a bit heavy, and now I've said plane hijackings, but it's not quite as it seems. He said, "I wanted to share with you the truly remarkable story of a 1969 hijacking of a domestic flight in the US, right?" Now, I said a while back, I learnt this at uni, that hijacking was like a really, really popular thing back in the 60s and 70s in the US. It was like almost like the choice of protest, which is mental. Yes. The amount of people who were like jumping on planes and saying, "Take me to Castro's Cuba, please," was, I mean, it's wild. If you go to the Wikipedia page and look up like plane hijackings in the US, there's like fucking loads of them. Anyway, Nathan says, in 1969, a flight from New Jersey to Miami was hijacked midway through and diverted to Cuba by the hijackers, which is not particularly unusual for the time. However, one of the passengers on board was a well-known TV and radio personality called Alan Funt, right? And I looked this up, and it's 100% true. It's definitely happened. Alan was most well known for his popular prank show at the time called Candid Camera, right? A show he created which is regarded as the first ever hidden camera TV prank show. When the plane was being taken over by the hijackers, many of the other passengers saw and recognised Alan and assumed this was one of his pranks. And not only would they land in Miami safely, but they would get their 15 minutes of fame as well as meeting one of their favourite TV funny men. Indeed, many of the passengers were laughing when it was announced the plane was hijacked and approached Alan to let him know he didn't fool them this time and asked for his autograph. Of course, Alan and the airline staff were well aware this was not a prank, an actually incredibly dangerous situation, and they were all terrified. Alan spent the rest of the journey to Havana pleading with other passengers to believe him this was not a prank, and they were in grave danger on their way to Cuba, but he was unable to convince any of them.
Look, I think that's a really nice bit of service. That just relaxes everybody, because you think it's all a big prank.
So,
it's not going to change anything, is it?
Yeah, so basically he ended up, they basically landed in Cuba, which then finally convinced the passengers. And then they were all kept in captivity for 11 hours before being released.
Oh, my God.
I mean, what are the chances of that happening?
No, well, very low, I imagine. That's fantastic. I'm a big fan of that. But you would be like, will everyone just calm down? This isn't a joke, but I'm appreciating that I am helping, sort of. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it would be...
People are more relaxed than they otherwise would have been.
People are more relaxed, I guess. People would be more obnoxious, certainly.
But I just imagine the conversation of Alan going, "Guys, it's not a prank."
It's not.
And everyone going, "Yeah, you would say that,
I know I always say that, but it's not.
So
oh,
good.
My goodness. Fantastic.
I want to do this email as well, so we'll finish up with this one from Chris. Hello to you, Chris. And thank you to Nathan for sending that story, because I was unaware of that. It's a really good one. Chris says, "Good morning, lads. As an American who's a long-time listener, I was chuffed to hear Luke bring up the Ford plant that built bombers during the Second World War in my town. I wanted to bring you a bit more insight. So do you remember that, Peter, when I told you that they, once the US really decided they wanted to get stuck into the Second World War, they brought all the might of their manufacturing and infrastructure onto it, and they started making like a ridiculous amount of hardware. But yes. Chris says this plant you were talking about in Michigan was called the Willow Run plant. It was conceived of in one night with just some rough drawings, and by the end of the war was building one B-24 Liberator bomber an hour.
And
right?
how many people were working on that? Good God.
It's an incredible bit of engineering, incredible... I think it was the Ford company that did it, and they had it up and running by about, I think, I don't know, like a few months, by the middle of 1941. It had 42,500 employees. It was 3.5 million square feet in terms of size. And the crazy thing about it as well was that of the 42,500 employees, every month, 8,000 of them were being drafted.
Yeah.
So they had to keep replenishing them, right? And they built like a whole town next to it for people to live and all the rest of it. It's an incredible thing. So yeah, thanks for letting us know the name of it. Chris also says, Pete, I spent some time in Essex about 20 years ago as a scout, and I must say thank you for mentioning all the little shops, food takeaways and goings on in the area, because it brings me a bit of a happiness and nostalgia every time you mention it.
That's nice.
And he's also invited us to South East Michigan to visit, to buy us a beer or three for all the hours of entertainment.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Do we have any plans to go to Michigan, Pete?
Not on the slate right now. I would say that, to be honest, most of the chat around my area is mainly about the new bins. So, there's not a single post on Facebook, there's not a single post on nextdoor.co.uk that isn't about the new bins, which come into operation, I think, the back end of this month. But everyone's very upset about it. We've only got
the bins being collected like every 2 weeks now.
Yeah, same here. We got the big bins and we put them out. People, there's this one man who is so dedicated to pointing out that he's read a clause in his house insurance that means that you need your bins, I think, 3 meters or 6 meters away from your property to, have your buildings insurance covered. And he, in every post about the bins, he just gets in there and goes, "They need to be 6 meters away from your house."
What? He sounds like an absolute hoot. Are you friends with him?
Such a penis. There's so many penises just getting.
How many houses are on your street?
Well, we've got quite a short little street, I suppose. Well, probably about 70 houses. But everyone's very upset about the bins. But what are you going to do? It's just some bins. It's just some bins.
So I hope, Chris, you find that interesting and bring you some nostalgia as well. But although Chris does mention elsewhere in his email, I kind of cut it down for brevity, but he mentions that he was in Thurrock, which isn't that close to you anyway, is it? A half-hour drive away or something.
No.
I guess to Americans, everywhere's close by in the UK.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
You could get there.
All right, Peter, take us out.
All right, guys. Yes, we'll be back on Thursday. Get your messages in about your batteries and that. hello@lukepetershaw.com. We'll be back then. Take care of you and yours. Say goodbye, Lukey Moore.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me.